What's up, guys? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Aurora Cannabis stock. So it seems like we finally have some positive news here. The stock is up big after that earnings release. So the stock is up pretty big in after hours trading as well. So in the after hours, the stock is all the way up to $7.67. So if we take a look at the 1 day gain, the stock is up 40% in just 1 day. So what happened, guys? Well, I told you guys I've been posting a lot of videos about Aurora Cannabis in the past, and to give you guys a quick rundown for you guys that weren't really aware, the stock has been going on basically a downward trend. But like I said, I tried to stay positive. I tried to think long term about the stock, knowing that basically the coronavirus pandemic was basically the bottom for most of these cannabis stocks. I just couldn't see things getting any worse than they were. And as we can see here, they just posted a pretty decent earnings report, and now the stock has popped up 40%. So let's dig into that earnings report and kind of see why people are so excited about kind of the new Aurora Cannabis. So if we just go over to the investor relations site, guys, so they just released this press release. Okay, so you can find this information if you just head to the Aurora Cannabis website. That's auroramj.com, and go to the investors. So as we take a look here, it says they posted results for third quarter 2020. Net revenue was $778.4 million, an increase of 18% over the prior quarter, and consumer cannabis net revenue of $41.5 million, a 24% increase, and they actually lowered their cash cost to produce per gram down to 85 cents and improved their cash position of $230 million. So this is basically kind of exactly what they were saying. They did a transformational phase. They have a new interim CEO. The old CEO stepped down. He was actually the founder of the company, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, guys, because usually you do want your founder running the company, but sometimes a founder is just not the best CEO. Sometimes you need to hire someone else to kind of lead the company, and it's better to kind of take a more board of directors role, because not everyone is cut out to be a CEO of a publicly traded company. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of problems that arise, and just because you're the founder doesn't mean you're ready to be the CEO. So I'm kind of just excited to see the interim CEO has just made these changes and actually produced on what he said he was going to do. So as we read really here real quickly, it says, "I'm incredibly proud of the Aurora team for working through these challenging times in order to maintain uninterrupted operations at all of our production facilities, ensure we continue to meet the needs of our patients and customers. I'm also pleased that our third quarter financial results were in line with our expectations and that we remain firmly on track with the cost savings and CAPEX goals we detailed during our business transformation plans in February 2020. So pretty much the problems with Aurora Cannabis is that they were burning through too much money and that the company was bloated. So they needed to cut down on staff and they needed to get efficient. I think one of the problems with some of these new companies that have kind of arisen during this new decade and things like that, they think bigger is better. And what we're really looking for is not big bloated companies. We're looking for efficient companies, because efficient companies are able to grow revenue faster, because you're as strong as your weakest link. So by having too many employees, you can have inefficiency links and problems with supply chain, and even just toxic people in your company. Sometimes you need to clean house and remove people that are causing problems. So I think it's best to kind of keep your best employees and remove the ones that are expendable and things like that. I know it's not the right time to do this, but if you're wanting to stay in business, you got to do whatever it takes to basically stay afloat. So as we can take a look here, so just really positive numbers, and this is exactly what we've been looking for. We've just been looking for any positive news, and basically, will the company stay in business? And the fact that Aurora has basically increased their numbers over the last quarter, I think investors are optimistic, and that's why we've seen a pop in the stock price. So let's see here. You can take a look at some of their goals. So they said their target goal was to be a 50% greater metric over the long term. So they're looking to stay on. They're definitely on track with that one. So as you can see here, it says adjusted gross margin before fair value on cannabis net revenue was 54% versus 55% on the quarter. So those are some really nice gross margins there. And then of course their need to simply reduce their selling general administrative expenses. So that's what I was talking about, just too bloated of a company, and they'll be able to knock that down quite a bit, because right now they're spending about $75 million, and I think they can definitely reduce that as well. And then if we take a look at some of their actual numbers, this is what I wanted to show you guys, the actual numbers here. So as you can see here, cash flow has improved. So they did some raising through at the market offering, and then they did the reverse split as well. And that was kind of a way to avoid the whole New York Stock Exchange delisting requirement. So the company is pretty cashed up. They've increased their cash balance quite a bit from last quarter, 230 million. Nothing. It's a pretty solid chunk of change for a smaller company like this, so they should be just fine when it comes to that. And then let's go all the way down here to operational metrics. So one of the nice things we see is that revenue has increased, and they have increased cash, and have increased not only kilograms produced but kilograms sold. So all these numbers are moving in the right direction, and they're not moving down like they were the previous two past quarters. So guys, for some of you guys to understand why this stock has been going up, it's simply with stocks in the short term, they trade very much on earnings. So if earnings are good, stocks usually go up. If earnings are bad, stocks usually go down. But over the long term, companies usually trade on retained earnings and total value return to shareholders. So I think as long as they're selling more cannabis, I think as long as they're producing more, and as long as they're watching the cost, I don't see any reason why this stock can't go a lot higher. So for you guys that were kind of let's go back to okay, so I know a lot of people out there were hating on the stock. Well, now with a little bit of optimism, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with Aurora Cannabis for the rest of the year. So for you guys out there that were super patient, congratulations. It looks like the tide has turned a bit. At least we've had one positive quarter, considering that the last couple of quarters prior to this, the earnings and the revenue was falling. So perhaps this is maybe a sign of some brighter things for Aurora Cannabis stock. Like I said, I currently have around 54 shares. I'm just holding on, guys. I'm not really trying to focus on 2020. I'm thinking 2022 and 2023. And by kind of having a long-term mindset, and obviously this isn't good for short-term trading. If you want to trade short-term, you're going to have to look more at kind of volume and charts and things like that. But for long-term thinking out there, I think this is probably the best time ever. The best time to buy the stock would have been right before earnings, when it was at around $5. But even if you're buying it now, it's still cheap. And if you guys have some shares, I would say if you don't really need the money, just hold on to your shares. Just don't. Nothing. Nothing's going to be built in a day, and nothing's going to be built in a week. It's going to take many quarters and many years for Aurora Cannabis and these other cannabis companies to become strong, mature companies. So I would just say, be very patient. Now, if this were another industry, like whether it was something to do with like consumer goods or retail or something like that, I would obviously have a different spin. But this industry basically started in 2019 when Canada legalized cannabis. So this company is basically an infant. So it's still in its first year or 2 years of basically, being able to really produce revenue legally. So as you can take a look at some similar companies, I know you can't really extrapolate based on things like Apple and Netflix, but many of these companies, they struggled as well in the past. And then now these companies are, teenagers basically, and as for being publicly traded, and they're doing very well. So there are a lot of people are going to be made millionaires, I think, in the cannabis industry, but only if they're patient. So for me, it would be get as many shares as possible. Use dollar cost averaging, get as many shares as possible, and stay tuned to quarterly reports and annual reports, guys, because these reports are really important to tell us which cannabis companies you would be focused on. So full disclosure, I own shares of Aurora Cannabis, and I also own shares of Canopy Growth. So those are my two favorite ones. I'm going to be posting some more content in the future on these channels. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, please give me a thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. I post videos on cannabis stocks like Hexo, Aurora Cannabis, Canopy Growth, Freya, and many others as we kind of navigate the new cannabis industry and see where this is headed, guys. I think there's a lot of long-term potential here. Many of these companies are trading either at like $1 billion or even less than like $3 billion market cap. And basically, these market caps are definitely going to grow into the future. As long as the U.S. government continues to pump money into the system, as long as there's inflation, we know that these companies are going to grow in market cap. So it's just important to make sure you're choosing the right one. So thank you guys a lot for watching this video, and congratulations for other shareholders out there, guys. For you guys that held on through the thick and thin, this is definitely a time to celebrate. It's always good to see companies that you own turn things around. So that's it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care.